Hello, voice raisers. Welcome to another episode of Raise Your Voice. My name is Marcia, and I'm part of a poetry group here in Chattanooga called Rhyme and Chat, where we rhyme and then we chat. We read poetry and then we talk about it. Today, we are going to meet two writers who live right here in the Tennessee Valley. Jerry is an author and Kelly is a poet. They both create stories with their words and raise their voice in different ways. We are about to hear how they use their words to address the topic of bullying. Bullying is when someone tries to hurt, intimidate, or coerce someone who they perceive as different or weaker than they are. As we listen in on a conversation between Jerry the author and Kelly the poet, listen for the main theme that runs through both of their writings. Notice how they are able to express their thoughts on the same theme in their own unique way. And think on how you can create your own writing on this topic. Let's listen in as they raise their voice.
Kelly, thanks. It's such a pleasure to be with you. We go back a good ways, and have a lot of interaction and writers groups and other things around the area. And I knew early on that this was a topic both of us resonated with. I knew when I read your collection of poems, Locust Years, I just knew, here's someone who understands what it's like to be young and to have some struggles. And I've always had a heart in my own life as a teacher, but also as a counselor for kids who just are having trouble finding that place,
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's another thing we share. We're both teachers.
So one of the things that, they've asked us is our own writings. And so for me, when I started writing several years back, I got some good advice to write what you know. And so Jam Sessions is the first book I've published. And it has that anti-bullying theme because I'm a middle school teacher and I see it every day in the halls. I'm just watching it every day. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd mind reading an excerpt from it. I'd love to hear.
Certainly. So I had set aside chapter 12. So I wrote the book to be accessible for a late elementary school kid, early middle school kid. So short chapters, short bites.
I noticed that about it when I was reading it.
Good. And this is coming in chapter 12. The main character, Phillip, has arrived at a new school in the middle of the year. And so he's not there on day one. He's the new kid. And when he goes to the office on that first day, the secretary's got to get him to class. And she just has this kid in the office who's there because he's in trouble. But she tells him to take him, and he's the school bully. And so he kind of takes Phillip under his wing, sort of, right? And so this is, that kid has invited Phillip to join them at their lunch table. Lunch was a bag of Doritos and a cup of nacho cheese sauce with ground beef in it. Phillip sat with Chuck and his two buddies, Javante and Robert. On their left was a table with Tina and her friends. A few boys sat with them as well. One had a cell phone out, and they were all alternating between looking at the phone and scanning for a watching teacher. Apparently, like his previous school, cell phones were supposed to stay in your locker. On the other side, there was a table with several boys. They were sliding colorful papers back and forth as they ate. Daniel was there, and he was rolling a few blue dice as he talked. Phillip heard one of the boys say, 18, and all the other boys smiled. Daniel replied, so you are okay. As Phillip continued eavesdropping, he felt something hit his forehead. Ow, he said without thinking. 3 points, Javante declared. He then picked the triangle folded paper up off the table and proceeded to flick it again. This time it hit Phillip in the chest. Ever play paper football? Chuck asked. We play every day. Javante can hit a field goal across 2 tables. I mean, he can put it anywhere he wants. On cue, Javante twisted in his seat, picked up the triangle paper again, and flicked it toward the girls' table. It flew in a perfect arc and landed in Tina's cheese. 3 points, Javante declared again, this time raising his hands to make a touchdown gesture. Tina just slid the cheese cup away and scowled. While the scowl was directed specifically at Javante, Phillip couldn't help but think it included him also. It occurred to Phillip that not everyone liked Chuck and his friends. Phillip recognized that being friends with Chuck might mean not being friends with others.
One of the first things that I noticed, why Chuck would befriend Phillip in the first place. I know you talked about they were in the office together and he had walked him to class, but I was curious about why Chuck took Phillip under his wing, like you said. Yeah. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Sure thing. So it's one of the things that I've seen in the halls, I'm sure you have too, is a lot of times kids who are bullies, they have their own history and their own reasons for coming to that place in their life. And there is some of that, for the character. But one of the things that people can become for them is you're either with them and you support what they do, or you're against them. And he really Chuck brings Phillip in for Phillip to be just like Javante, to be kind of his minion, do what he says, laugh when he tells him to, be his audience.
So he wants fans.
He's
just like self-centered. They're not really friends. They're more like clones.
That's right.
He has like he wants somebody to have power over, to control.
Absolutely. And when he gets a chance, later on in the book, he gets hold of Phillip's locker combination. And so when he gets a chance, he is more than willing to turn on Phillip for the joke. So the friendship is just a superficial thing for him. The poem you wrote actually really catches up on that theme, doesn't it? That I to we, so the imbalance of power, it becomes a conversation between equals. Do you mind reading it for us?
I would love to. As I was trying to write the poem, I was thinking about how I feel like there's so much imbalance of power currently in our nation and our world, and I think a lot of that stems from the differences, but if we can appreciate each other's differences, the world would be a better place. So, this is called Anti-Bully. Understanding. What does it do for me and you? When you look different or sound different than me, we bring so much color to the world through our diversity. And see, when I seek to understand you and you seek to understand me, then the two of us become we. There is no room for hate. We are family. We stand together in the face of adversity. We are the anti-bully.
And I love that. I love the theme. One of the things I always love about poetry, which I can't write, is that ability to take, the whole message here and consolidate it down into a real visual image. Even as I hear you say, take the two, we become we. But that ability to build those friendships and build those alliances that don't have a power imbalance. Mm-hmm. And it's so critical.
It's so important to make friends with people who are unlike ourselves. Yeah, everybody's been in a place where they thought they were the only one that had this problem or felt this way or whatever. So didn't you want someone to be an ally for you? It's the same concept in reverse.
Absolutely. And again, I know you're a teacher as well, but you've had a lot of other life experiences that bring you to poetry, right? To bring you to have that voice. But it is one of the, it's one of the things as writers that we seek to give voice to things we're passionate about, right? And so as we see things in the world that we love, we can highlight those and lift those up. As we see things in the world that we don't love as much, we can give a voice to maybe the other side of that. So I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think your poem does that well.
What would you say to kids, like when I was a kid and had problems with bullies, my teachers would almost universally tell my mom that the best thing to do was leave it alone and that the kids would work it out themselves, and it would probably create more problems within the dynamic of us as classmates if a teacher or principal stepped in and made something happen.
Absolutely.
What would you say?
I love that question. And it's actually, as I wrote Jam Sessions, one of the things that I struggled with early on is how much of Philip's life do I give outside of the school, right? Because here he is, his mom has moved mid-year, his parents are going through a breakup, a divorce, new school, new life, new city, and how much of that do you integrate? And I chose early on to make the 90% of the book about the school, because I see so many books that are about the other. But when a kid walks into that building, it becomes their world for 7 hours.
Every single day.
Every day. And we can tell a kid, ignore
10 months
it,
out of the year.
or, don't get
Yep.
involved with it or whatever. But it is their whole world.
Kind of have to interact in some way.
It is. And, the best advice I can give to students that I've had that chance to interact with is find your tribe. Find your tribe. Find your people that you can be with, that you can care with.
So focus
care
on the
for you.
positive.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Like Philip learns to do with his friend.
Too. Simon.
Now I feel better.
That's
Simon.
all right. That's right. No, I thought you were going to talk.
And then as he bonds with Simon, he starts being able to ignore Chuck, and the stupidness kind of starts to go away. Yeah.
That's right. So he has two friends. Simon's one who has anxiety attacks and sings, and here's Philip with this kind of anxiety. And then he has the other one that you just kind of saw out of the corner of chapter 12, rolling that blue dice, and they're playing kind of a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game. Philip's never done that, but he sees the community of them working together, and he steps into
So
that
you
a little
focus
bit.
on what you can do and what you like to do, and you bond with some others who like the same things.
Yeah, if you have a friend with you who tells you ignore them, that's a lot easier than a teacher telling you.
Sure.
Absolutely.
It's on a relatable level.
Absolutely.
To read Jerry's book, Jam Sessions, and Kelly's book, Locust Years, ask for them the next time you visit the Chattanooga Public Library. So, can you relate to what Jerry and Kelly shared with us? Have you ever dealt with bullying? Were you the one being bullied, or were you the bully? Have you ever witnessed someone being bullied? And how did you deal with that? When I've been in situations where I felt like I was being picked on, I felt stressed, I felt anxious, I was afraid, and I just wanted to disappear. But disappearing wasn't an option. And for many of us, disappearing just isn't an option. We have to come up with a way to cope. We have to look for ways to feel safe again. We have to look for constructive ways to raise our voices. One way to raise your voice is by letting an adult in authority know about it, because bullying is never okay. You can also raise your voice through your writing. Writing can be used as a tool to cope with difficult situations. It can help you work through challenging and confusing times. Think on how one may be faced with an uncomfortable situation or encounter. How do you envision them working through it? What could one learn from that? How can someone help another person who's in a tough situation? Let's write about it. Send what you create to Raise Your Voice at WTCITV.org. Now let's get to writing, and I can't wait to see what you create when you raise your voice.